Could we have a blessing? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruling spirit of the universe, for giving us mitzvot, for sanctifying us, giving us mitzvot, and giving us the spiritual opportunity to engage in words of Torah. Amen. This week's Torah portion is called Teitzei. It is a twin portion, not because it is read when we have double portions, because it's only read by itself, but the twin portion with the next week's Torah portion. This one's called Teitzei, which means when you go out, and the next one is called Tavo, when you come in. Okay? And next week's Torah portion, I'm not going to be here teaching, is my favorite Torah portion of all time, because that was my bar mitzvah Torah portion. Yeah. And my son's, so it was kind of cool. But this is Teitzei. In this Torah portion, we have more mitzvot listed than any other Torah portion in our cycle. Interestingly, everybody says that there are 74 mitzvot. Maimonides says that there are 72. I don't know. There are a lot. So we're going to look at the Torah portion, and we're just going to look at a few sections, and then, as you know, my tradition is we'll go to another piece for the second half. Okay, so we are in, again, for those of you who were with us last night, I told you that this Torah portion has a lot of mitzvot regarding labor and how we treat our workers, how we treat our oxen, a bunch of stuff about girls and virgins and all this other stuff. We're not going to look at that. Last time I was here for Teitzei a year ago, for those of you who may have some memory of that, we spent a lot of time talking about the bird who is in the nest and you shoo away the mother. We're not going to talk about that either. That's right at the top. So we're going to look at starting at verse 8, and we're going to read a little bit, and then we're going to talk about it. So do I have a... Oh, I'm sorry. We're on chapter... good question. Hold on. Chapter 22, verse 8, and it is page 1324 in the Torah commentary. Okay, so do we have a volunteer who'd like to... Oh, we got a couple. Jane first, and then Elaine, you'll read after Jane. Jane, will you start, please, verse 8?
Okay. When you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof, so that you do not bring blood guilt on your house if anyone should fall from it. You shall not sow your vineyard with a second...
One moment. There you go.
Second kind of seed, else the crop from the seed you have sown and the yield of the vineyard may not be used. You shall not plow with an ox and an ass together. You shall not wear clothing combining wool and linen. You shall make tassels on the four corners of your garment with which you cover yourself.
Okay, stop right there. Thank you very much, Jane. Okay, what do you see? So I'm going to go back here. Here's the beginning of it. When you build a new house, build a parapet. You know what that is, by the way? It's a fence, basically. Okay. And then don't sow your vineyard with the second kind of seed. Don't plow it with an ox and an ass. Don't wear clothing combined with wool and linen. And then make tassel of four corner garments which you cover yourself. What's going on? Anybody?
No. Sandy Spector. It just seems like a mishmash.
Okay, a mishmash. 2, 3. Oh, well, okay, wait. 2, 3, 4, 5. Nobody on up. And Elaine, you're 6.
Verse 8,
Up.
Howard Selznick.
Thank you.
The verse 8 sounds like the beginnings of a building code.
Okay, so this right here sounds like a building code, but the rest of them don't. Okay, who's number 2?
Why, it's a mishmash.
Yeah, Howard, hand the mic back.
Thank you. Cynthia Graham. It sounds like they're setting limits.
Everything's about setting limits. Mm-hmm. Oh, good. I like that. Okay, next. Right behind you.
I'm not going to speak to so much what I see in here, but I wanted to state, since you said one of your tour portions, well, your tour portion was your fave. This is one of my favorites because of the parapet law, because we're looking out for the safety of other people on our property, and also not putting two animals together that are unequal, because this is our concern for the welfare of animals. So this is one of my favorite portions, actually.
Do you see any connection between them?
Safety.
Safety. Okay,
Care for others,
great.
both animal and human.
Okay, next over here.
I think that
Up,
they're,
up.
Shelley Aber, they're trying to underscore the message that extreme caution is needed because unexpected things can happen. And those of us who study Talmud know that one of the more memorable stories in the Talmud is about a guy who falls off a roof and impregnates a woman below. So,
There's a mini series coming out about that.
things you may not even be anticipating can happen that can, cause unexpected outcomes.
Okay. Elaine, you're next, and then Larry, pass that mic back, would you?
Yeah, two things, that there's something of separation between, like don't mix with that, right? So there's don't mix these animals, don't mix the cloths, don't take seed from something else. So there's that. But I also have a question. So it starts out by saying if you build a new house, but what if you're moving into a house, it's not new, and there's no parapet? Are you then responsible for putting up a parapet, or making that not dangerous because that's where you're living, but it's not a new house, it's already there? Like earthquake retrofit, you guys.
Elaine, that's a great question. We're going to have to ask the building inspector that question.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've read anything about the answer. I think, but if my instinct would be that if you buy a house and it's your house, it's the equivalent of a new house, and you need to make sure. I couldn't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure that would be the case. Thank you.
Larry Shapiro, Shalom. I have to say this is my least favorite portion in the Torah, because I believe that this section is what divides the Jewish community. Because the Orthodox take these rules to be so, you have to strictly do this wool and linen business, which seems to have no rationality to it. In the same way with wearing the fringes, it becomes this outward sign that, quite frankly, our enemies use against us. So it seems to me that this is not a good section, that we should really look at these things. And I think Reform Judaism does that. It says, is this a rational thing to do? And looking at the wool and the linen in particular, maybe having an ox and a donkey together is not the best idea, but it still gets the job done, and it's up to the person plowing the fields to make sure that both animals are treated well. But I think that this business of the strict observance versus the spirit of the law, this is a good place where it really comes into conflict.
Thank you. One more comment, and then I get 2 more comments, and then I get to make 3 more comments, and then I get to make 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, Mark Levy. The first 3 seem to me to be pretty practical rules for following that simply make sense. The 4th one seems to be out of that realm. There's no practical sense that I can understand with verse 12. So I see these as 2 different sets. That's my observation.
Jeff Berman, on only planting 1 seed, I want to remind everybody the American Indian used to plant 3 together. the corn, let's see, there was corn and two other things, and beans and squash, right? And they had great crops all the time. And the reason for it was one puts the nutrition back into the ground when you do it. So I don't understand this one either.
For me, this L-taffine, for me, it symbolizes purity. How to keep things as they were created by God, and not to mix based on our own preferences or choices. So the same thing with today with the agricultural industry and developing new seeds that are disease tolerant and all. Are we playing around with God's creations?
So
everything has an
right.
upside and a downside.
GMO versus not GMO. Got it. So let me make a couple of comments. In my mind, I did this intentionally. I don't see a connection between 8 and the rest of it. Okay, 8's kind of sitting by itself in my mind. I wanted to see where you all went with it. I love this. I love this line because it's about where you live. You are responsible for other people. I mean, it's not just that you have to have insurance if something were to happen, but you have to do what you need, what you can to make sure that accidents don't occur. And the idea is that you are responsible for other people, even when, well, as their host, you're responsible for their safety. I love that idea. I see it as separate. 9 through 12, 9 through 11 are all connected. And because they all say one thing, because look at them. Don't sow your vineyard with a second kind of seed. Don't plow with an ox and an ass. Don't wear cloth combining wool and linen. Don't mix unlike things. Okay, that's the message. Now, the bad news is that those the early Dutch settlers in South Africa, who were Bible-believing people, saw that, they read it, they believed it, and they believed, therefore, apartheid was legitimate. We should be, I'm going to use their language. Whites and blacks should not mix. Okay? That's our Bible says it. Okay? Hold on. Hand down. Let me finish for a moment. That's what the Dutch Boers were saying. Okay? Blacks and whites don't mix, so we're going to keep them separate. And they use this passage as their justification for it. So it's problematic in many ways. Okay? But then you have verse 11 and 12. And that's what I want to focus on in a moment. Verse 11 says, you shall not wear cloth combining wool and linen. The next line is, you shall make tassels on the four corners of the garment with which you cover yourselves. Now look at my cursor. See that word right there that I'm circling? Called shatnez. Shatnez is the term for mixing, combining wool and linen. It's not found any other place in Torah, and we do not know what its origin is. We have no idea. It's just this word, and we've come to understand it to mean that you don't combine. Okay, shatnez means, when you say shatnez, it means you go combine wool and linen. Now, so I'm going to stop there for a moment. There was a comment. Two comments. Microphone back here, please. Who has the mic?
Put the mic on this side.
Where's the mic on this side, please? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Cynthia Graham.
Cynthia, put the mic.
I think it's a question of perception, because to say that Black people and white people are two separate people isn't really true. They're the same people. They're just different colors.
Cynthia, I agree with you 100%. I was merely stating historically what happened. I'm not saying it was correct. Okay, I'm just historically just sharing fact, okay? 2.
Joshua Seeger. So, first of all, it says you shall not wear cloth combining wool and linen. And there is some notion among some of our ancient rabbis that this was directed only at the laity because the priests for sure were wearing cloth combining wool and linen.
Okay. I'll get to that in a moment.
Okay. And the tassels, like the tassels on the tallis, this is for a talit katan, which I saw my math professors wearing when I was in school. These are reminders of God's commandments and what we should be living according to. And I see all of these together as further distinction to distinguish us Israelites, us Jews, from the other people that we encounter.
So 2 comments. It's exactly what Larry said, but in an opposite way. Okay. The second thing I want to say is you mentioned talit katan. Does everybody know what that is? If you don't, raise your hand. Okay. Talit katan. So bless you. A talit, you know what a talit is. So a talit has on its 4 corners tassels, fringes, that when you tie the knots, and usually they're made of wool, by the way, and they represent several things, but one thing that they represent 613 commandments. When you tie the knots, you add all the knots and twists together, they equal, according to one system, 613. So the idea is that you're wearing the mitzvot on you. Now, what happened was, in early days, it is believed that these tassels, whatever they look like, actually circled the bottom of people's robes. There weren't edges to them necessarily, the way they were created. And so the whole idea of 4 corners is a little bit later tradition. And so since you wore stuff over you that didn't necessarily have these corners, the tradition then developed of creating what was called the talit katan, which was basically an undershirt, okay, that had 2 sides to it, a front and a back, and on each corner, in the front and the back, they then put talitot, the tzitzit. So Orthodox men, almost all of them, will be wearing talit katan either underneath their shirts, and you will see the tzitzit hanging out. Some who, for whatever reason, feel it's really important that it be, the talit katan will be on the outside, and they really want to show that they're doing it. Okay, so that's where talit katan comes from. Okay, that's not what this says. Okay, this just says wear tzitzit. Hold on a second. It says, it's called gidilim, not tzitzit. Okay, it's called gidilim, and it comes from the root gadol, great. So greatness, whatever that may mean, you will wear on the 4 corners of your garment that with which you cover yourself. Okay, that's what it says. So hold on. Have you okay, 1 and then 2.
Steve Ruvalo. Just want to add to what Joshua said. You have this differences, and then the last one, it's like quid pro quo. Show your Jewishness. You obey these mitzvot, and the 12 is like the summary. Therefore, you are a Jew, and you show your Jewishness by virtue of this article of clothing.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, Ellen Ratner. My Orthodox family is very involved in making sure that they're following shatnez, and they have a special tailor
that they go to who certifies that they're not combining wool and linen. And I once asked in Israel, how do you stand it when the small talit is wool and it's hot and it's humid? And the answer was, you get used to it.
Well, it's true. The other thing I will say, or think about the men and women in the Middle East and some of the clothing the choices that they wear. 1 second. I want to go back to what Joshua said for a moment. I want you to look at these comments. So there's this comment that talks about wool and linen together. The reason, I love this, I had not heard this before. The reason why only these two categories of yarn are forbidden is that the two were involved in the first murder. Cain's offering to God had consisted of leftover flax that he had grown, while Abel had offered sheep, which grew wool. Seeing that these two species have been indirectly responsible for the first disagreement between human beings, ending in the death of one, we're to be forever minded of this. I mean, it's fascinating how someone can think about this. Okay, next, you should make yourself twisted threads. Here, the tzitzit are referred to as gedilim. Our sages cited tradition about the appearance of this commandment in a positive connotation immediately after the prohibition of mixing wool and linen to teach us that for the purpose of tzitzit, this prohibition has been waived. So in other words, I can wear a talit of linen and the tzitzit of wool. And do not wear a garment consisting of wool and linen intertwined. The reason for this prohibition is the dividing curtain in the temple was made of a mixture of linen and wool. God did not want Jews to wear something symbolizing that dividing curtain between which was the holy ark, from the lid of which the voice of God could be heard. Meaning, how dare us wear something so sacred in a profane way? And going to where Joshua had started, we know that the clothing of the priests in the temple was a mixture of linen and wool. Okay, it makes no sense at all. So there are 7 or 8 things in our tradition that they say, other rabbis say, are so inscrutable. They're God's will, and someday we will understand them. But until then, we just have to do it. Shatnez is one of them. And what's interesting about shatnez is that it is literally, I mean, it says it, and then immediately after you have this comment about talitot. And so that's how the rabbis put it together. If you have this comment about shatnez, why are you talking the very next verse about wearing tassels? And the rabbis say it must mean that the Torah is teaching us that that prohibition of 11 does not apply to 12. Otherwise, why would it be there? Okay, I'm not one of the Gedolim. I'm not one of the great ones. I can't get it. But that's what the tradition says. Okay, Harv, microphone over here, please. Introduce yourself.
Minute.
Can you hear it? Yeah, it sounds good. I just
Introduce yourself.
Harv Citron.
Thank you.
In case nobody knows me. I just want to point out that every word in all of these commandments is subject to interpretation. What is a tassel?
Mhm.
What is wool? What is linen? How much processing do they go through? Is it raw wool or is it washed wool? Is it 4 corners of the garment? Does that mean part of the commandment is that you shall wear a garment with 4 corners? Why? Is it an undergarment or is it any garment that covers you? There's a whole host of questions that can be asked, and I will be admitting that I have no idea what the answer to any of it is.
So Harv, thank you for that. You know, remember, while we may not necessarily agree with what I'm about to say, the rabbis and those who live in especially the ultra-Orthodox community believe deeply that each word matters. Each word needs to be understood for what it means. And so the rabbis will spend a great deal of time talking about the word semer, wool. What does that mean? Exactly the questions that you asked. We ask those questions, say, like, who cares? They look at it, and the question is, what does God want of me? How does God want me to understand this word? Remember, it goes back to the paradigmatic example of Deuteronomy and Shema and V'ahavta. It says, "You shall write these words on the doorpost of your house." It doesn't say how. It doesn't even say what words. It says, "You shall write these words." Well, what words are we talking about, folks? Is it the phone book? I mean, is it all of Torah? Is it but the rabbi said, well, literally these words, literally those words. And they didn't, and they, I mean, reams of commentary about where do you put it on the doorpost, or top, bottom, side? Well, and you know the argument. You have Shammai and Hillel. Shammai says, do it this way. Hillel says, do it this way. And the compromise was to do it this way. Well, why? Because if you believe that if God is the mitzvah, if God is the commandor, we are the mitzvahs. We are the commandees. And we want to do, from this perspective, what God wants us to do. And we need to figure that out. So what Harv, you're saying is exactly right, but it becomes more fodder for the rabbis because they're trying to figure out exactly what this means. And so in that regard, it's eminently important. One more, you raise your hand. 1 second. It also goes to what Joshua and Larry are saying about this is a symbol. I mean, it is as much of a symbol as circumcision is. Okay, and those are really the two major symbols that we have. They're both for men. One's an internal symbol, meaning you don't go displaying it. But the other one is an external symbol. And it creates the community. And Larry, you're right. It creates the community that can then be attacked. Okay? So how many of you wear a mezuzah or a Star of David outside? How many? How many wear it inside? It's an issue. I see people all the time with their crosses. And I don't take umbrage at it. I'm delighted that they're sharing their faith. And they do it, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, they do it without any fear. And every time, I mean, I don't happen to wear one, but I used to for a long time, I would not wear it outside. Just because. Okay, one more comment, and then we're going to move on to the next piece.
Shelley Aber. So on the issue of the commandments that don't seem to have some understandable basis that you were describing, among my Orthodox friends, the interpretation that it makes it more understandable to me is, what parent in the history of the world has not at some time said to their child, because I said so. And to quote Steve Bauman, I'm God and you're not. And so this idea that we think that using our, shall we say, more limited, rational, contemporary, whatever, that we have to understand absolutely everything. And so for those for whom they have a different relationship to the mitzvot and the commandments, are able to say, because God said so. That's what we will have to live with until Moshiach comes.
Thank you, Shelley. I just do want to say one thing to Steve Bauman. And that is Steve here?
Yes.
Where are you, Steve? Don't let it go to your head. Okay. Okay. I said we're going to now move on, but I'll take one more. Pass the mic over, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
I know that we are talking just about 3 verses, but I I always read a little bit before, and this whole parsha is full of commandments that are just like so horrible. And also just the one sentence before about the chicken and the eggs and what we are doing with it. It's just like, and one before it about a man that wears women's, all this LGBT problem. It's just like, I mean, how can I relate to this at all?
You're asking a great question. No, we're not going to talk about it today. No, we're just not, because there's so much to say about it. But we're not going to talk about it. I will say this though. There's much in Torah that we as individuals may not agree with. And for example, the one that you're referring to, which is a woman shall not put on men's apparel, nor a man wears women's clothing. Another one is if you have a defiant child, you will stone them to death. Another one is don't have tattoos. There are a bunch of them. Okay, some are more horrendous than others. Personally, there are two ways of looking at them. One is to look at them in context of the time in which they were written. The other is to look at them in context of, in sense that this is an eternal value. Orthodox Jews will say this is an eternal statement. Okay, and therefore the Orthodox community does not countenance LGBTQ plus identities. It's a problem. Okay, I look at it, and as a congregant of mine many, many years ago said to me during Torah study, when we would come up to things like this, shame on us. Okay, shame on us that this is what is written. But I always say yes, and we have to understand it in the context of the day. It does not apply, in my mind, to our world today. I think there is a lesson from it, but I don't think the lesson is the one that most people derive from it. But again, with all respect, we're not going to go there today. I'm going to go to one other section in this week's parasha, and then I'm going to do my other piece. And that is, I'm going to go to this one. So, Elaine, would you please read this passage beginning with verse 17?
17. Yeah, if I just make a fast comment about wearing a
Elaine,
mezuzah.
I'm gonna ask, we're running out of time. If you
Okay,
would please
okay.
just read.
Yes, remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left Egypt, how, undeterred by fear of God, he surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary, and cut down all the stragglers in your rear. Therefore, when the Eternal your God grants you safety from all your enemies around you, in the land that the Eternal your God is giving you as a hereditary portion, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget.
Okay, so this is really important. We've heard this before. We've heard this back in Exodus. Okay, remember what Amalek did, and basically, God will. You will blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. The message is, it's very clear. If you meet an Amalekite at Starbucks getting a double latte, it is your obligation to strike them dead. That is your job. That's what this passage is saying. Okay, now, hold on. I want you to read what it says in Exodus. Then came Amalek, fought with Israel in Rephidim. Joshua discomforted Amalek and his people at the edge of the sword. And the Lord said to Moses, write this for memorial in the book and read it aloud. Joshua, I, God, will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar, called it Adonai EDC, and he said, the hand upon the throne of the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. That's Exodus. This one says, okay, now in Deuteronomy, remember what Amalek did to you, and therefore God will give you rest from all the enemies, and God will blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. My question to you is, why are there two different stories being told here? Any thoughts? Okay, one. Okay, these are your last comments. 1, 2, anybody else? 3. Okay, those are all last comments. So Larry?
Well, I think this is Larry Shapiro. This is the best example of, you have to read it in light of the times, because Deuteronomy was written after the people were in the land, during the kings of Israel, and it's clear that they wanted divine words to empower the government to smite their enemies. I mean, and raise an army to go after them. It has an unfortunate derivative to the present state of Israel.
So why is it different?
Well, it's different because in the beginning, it's just God doing that. And it wasn't enough when it was rewritten as Deuteronomy to say, well, God's going to do this. We have to do this.
So it's authority to do it.
It's authority.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, Harv, over here.
It's not completely clear to me whether Amalek is a people or a person. In a portion of it, it says he. I presume that's a good translation, and not they.
It's him and his followers. It's both.
Well,
no, it says it in the text.
But if you take it to the modern day, we would like to wipe out the memory of Hitler, not the German people. So if it's just a person, a lot of what is tradition goes out the window.
Thank you.
Steve Lazarus, there's I guess a human tradition reaction of those when something is said, in the Torah or the Christians in their Bible, that God says, this is the situation. Then humans have the right to take action against those who are not fulfilling that instruction. So this is human nature. And so the it applies to many of the mitzvot in the Torah.
Again, so why the difference? Do you think?
Well, here, so this is, it's rewritten very much like Larry said. By the time this was rewritten, they're saying, okay, we're interpreting this, we get to take the action.
Okay, so I'm going to stop. I want you to look at this. So the one scholar said, this is the first one is Moses as historian. The second one is Moses, lawgiver, moralist. And then Rashi says, this is a fascinating comment. This is an expression of cold and heat. He chilled you and cooled you down from boiling. For all the nations were afraid to fight against you, and this one came and began and showed the way to others. This may be compared to a bath of boiling water which no creature can get into, comes along a fool and jumps into it. Though he gets scalded, he has cooled it for others. What Rashi is saying, forgetting about why it goes from God to humans, the question Rashi's answering is, why are we told to destroy Amalek? And what Rashi says, because Amalek showed others that this could be done. Showed others that if you attack from the rear, if you attack from the weakest point, you can get and harm the Israelites. Now, again, I don't want to take I don't want to take too much out of this, but I read this. I thought to myself, Hamas, Iran, Black September, Fatah, they have spent, again, I'm all for peace, but they spent a lifetime showing that it's okay to attack. And we are reaping those negative benefits today with the rampant anti-Semitism that exists. And this is a chilling reminder as to why it happens. So I just want you to see that. We're out of time. I want to go to the other piece. No. I want to go to my other piece of learning. But I got to show you one other thing before I do. There's this weird statement about, look at verse 4. It's chapter 23. No Ammonite or Moabite shall be admitted into the congregation of the Eternal. No descendants of such, either in 10th generation, shall be admitted to the congregation of Israel, because they did not meet with your food and water in your journey if you left, blah, 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 blah. Okay? It says very clearly that these people will never be able to become Jews. Now, what's weird about this is, can someone tell me who the great-grandmother of King David was? Ruth. And who was Ruth? A Moabite, right? So, all right, I'll get to you in a moment, okay? Ruth was a Moabite. So the question is, what's it all about? And the answer, so say the rabbis, is look at Genesis. Both of Lot's daughters became pregnant. The older daughter had a son, named him Moab, and the younger daughter had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites. And therefore, those people, they were these products of incest, and therefore, for that sin, one said, they will not be allowed into Judaism. The other reason given is that Deuteronomy 2 talks about let us pass through. We say to Sichon, king of Heshbon, let's pass through a country. We'll stay on the main road. You will not turn aside to the left or right. Sell us food to eat and drink for their price in silver. Only let us pass through on foot. Why is that there? Stop. Okay. Only let's pass through on foot, as the descendants of Esau who lived in Seir and the Moabites who lived in Ar did for us. So what's this about? It says in Deuteronomy that we got food, and yet it says up here they didn't give us food. Okay, the answer the rabbis say is they did not offer us food when they saw that we were hungry. And just listen to me for a moment. They did not offer us food when they saw that we were hungry, and they hired Balaam to curse the Jews. Okay? Again, there was a piece of me, sadly, painfully, that makes me think of what's happening in the world today, in Gaza. There are people who are hungry, and how much food we're offering, what we don't know. I keep saying I want to go over to Gaza. I want to go there and see with my own eyes so I know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. But it just reminded me of that. So I share it with you. It's painful. I'm going to now move on. I got 6 minutes to do the other piece that I want to do, and I hope that you will appreciate it. Oops, wrong. Yeah. Yep, there it is. Okay. So this is the section called the forgotten sheaf. Okay? When you reap the harvest in your field and overlook a sheaf in the field, do not turn back to get it. You should go to the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, in order that your God may bless you in all your undertakings. When you beat down the fruit of your olive trees, do not go over them. They shall go to the stranger, fathers, the widow. When you gather grapes in your vineyard, do not pick over them. They shall go to the stranger, fathers, the widow. Always remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore, do I enjoin you to observe this commandment. Same commandment, 3 different things. It has to do with the sheaf in the field, the fruit of the olive tree, and the grapes in the vineyard. Okay, the section generally is called the forgotten sheaf, and the question that's asked is, what is this about? Is it just about helping the stranger, the widow, and the orphan? Is that all it's about? And this is what the rabbis say. Rashi says the rabbis say a sheaf that is behind them is considered shichecha. That's the term, shichecha, which means the forgotten sheaf, okay? Shechach means to forget. So shichecha, that which is in front of him is not considered shichecha. For the expression, bless you, you shall go back or take it is not applicable to it. So in other words, this only refers to what's gone behind you, okay? This is important. Rashi then says, although it came into the stranger, the orphan, or the widow's hand without the owner intending it, it follows logically that he will receive a blessing if he does this intentionally. You must therefore admit that if a selah amount of grain fell out of one's hand and a poor person finds it and supports himself for it, then he will surely be blessed on that account. In other words, what the Rashi is saying is that you will be blessed for this, even though you had no intention of doing it. Because think about how much you would have been blessed if you had the intention of doing it. Okay, Rashi. 21st century commentary, Chabad House Publications. Okay, many of the commentaries here are by Schneerson, the Chabad rabbi who some say is the Messiah. Okay, this is what they write. For the convert, the orphan and the widow. That's not what the text says. The text says ger, which is historically understood to be stranger. Important differential. The innermost desire of every Jew, no matter what his or her outward level of observance of the Torah, is to perform God's will in full. Therefore, even when we perform a commandment unintentionally, even mistakenly, is really the result of our deep-seated desire to do it. In other words, what they're saying is, we meant to do it, and we get credit for it. We meant to do it even if we didn't know that we were doing it. In our hearts, we're always thinking about how we want to make the world a better place to live. What's interesting is they do not include the stranger. They only talk about the convert. They choose to translate it not as stranger, but as convert. Why? Because, and this is a prejudice on my part, Chabad does not look to the outside world. They're only concerned with Jews. And so it's not the stranger. It is the convert, the one who has already come into your home, that this applies to. Okay. Jamie Weisbach, a rabbi. Commandment known as shichacha is one of many commandments that requires to leave some produce behind in the poor. It's also a highly unusual commandment. It seems to be a commandment you can only fulfill unintentionally due to the requirement of forgetting. Remember, what did I just read about Amalek? Do not forget. Yet here, it requires you to forget. Okay? It isn't charity. There are other commands about charity and easier, more common, consistent. The purpose of shichacha is about giving charity in a way that doesn't create feeling of indebtedness from the recipient, that they feel they're not taking anything of real worth, and therefore they aren't imposing any. You think about it. What you leave behind is nothing. You can't sustain yourself on what's left behind. This is an accidental. I accidentally didn't look at that tree, or accidentally didn't get the top branch. This is just a little bit. But it's still a way in which the recipient, therefore, doesn't feel guilty that they're taking it. The effect is very difficult to create intentionally. That's why genuine forgetting is so important. Okay, Tosefta, Talmud. Story, a pious man who forgot his sheep in his field. He said to his son, "Go and get me a bull for a burnt offering and a bull for a peace offering." "Father, what makes you want to rejoice in the precept more than all the others?" He says to him, "God has given all the other precepts of the Torah to be observed consciously. This one is to be unconsciously observed, and therefore it's even more important when we observe it." Sefer HaChinuch, 13th century, says that God wished his chosen people in grace with every good moral quality. They should be generous in spirit and blessed in soul. Blah, blah, blah. There is no doubt that by leaving a portion of his produce and declaring it free for everyone so the needy may enjoy it, man's spirit will become more unselfish. The purpose of the commandment, so says this book, is for us to train ourselves to become unselfish. And continues, the poor and needy also need to look forward to enjoying some of the produce. And that's the other reason we do it. We do it in order to allow other people to enjoy the benefit from our forgetting. Samson Raphael Hirsch, the gift of the poor constitutes a contrast, a protest against the concept of mine. Hirsch basically says we live in a world of I-isms. It's all about me. This is a commandment that says it's not about you. You don't own the fields, you don't own the produce, you don't own squat. And so when you harvest, you don't go back. You get one chance at it. And whatever else is there is meant for other people. This is to limit you. And finally, Gunther Plaut in our Torah commentary says, people should learn not to want every last piece of produce and profit. Folks, thank you for sharing with me an hour of Torah study. Shall we rise as able? And read together. Look at the big words. You could all see them there. Let the glory of God be extolled. Let God's great name be hallowed in the world whose creation God willed. May God's great sovereignty soon prevail in our own day, our own lives, and the life of all Israel. And let us say amen. Let God's great name may be blessed in forever and ever. Let the name of the Holy One, a blessing of be glorified, exalted, and honored, though God is beyond all the praises, songs, and adorations that we can utter. And let us say amen. God of heaven and earth, grant abundant peace to our people and their leaders, to our teachers and their disciples, and to all who engage in the study of Torah here and everywhere. Let there be for them and for us all grace, love, and compassion, a joyful life, sustenance, and the hope of your sovereignty. And let us say amen. For us, for all Israel, and for all humanity, may the blessing of peace and the promise of life come true. And let us say amen. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, let peace descend on us and all Israel and all the world. And let us say amen. Shabbat shalom, everybody.